All right. How you doing today? Pastor Matt Harmless here. I'm reading The Mortification of Sin, or On the Mortification of Sin by John Owen. We are ready for chapter 8. Chapter 8 I will only divide into two parts. Chapter 8 is a very short chapter. It's dealing with the second general rule, striving to mortify all. I don't know why the printing of this made the word all small. All lust, or fail to mortify any lust. So the second general rule, strive to mortify all lusts, or you will fail to mortify any lust. Important thought. So the first general rule is in chapter 7, is what he says, and I'm going to read halfway through this chapter. I think I have a mark there, and then the second half is reasons for the predominance of a particular lust. Okay, so let me read through chapter 8 and the first half of it, and then I'll read through the second half later. All right, so the second general rule I propose, Jonathan Owen, is this. The second general rule, strive to mortify all lusts, or fail to mortify any lust. Without being sincere and diligent to mortify all our lusts, we cannot mortify a single lust. The other general rule referred to the person. This rule applies to the sin itself. Let me explain. Okay. Any lust can put a man in the condition described earlier. It is powerful, strong, and severe. It leads him captive, troubles him, disturbs him, and takes away his peace. He cannot bear it, and so he sets himself against it. He prays against it, groans under it, and sighs to be delivered from it. But in the meantime, perhaps in his other duties, in his constant communion with God, in his reading, prayer, and meditation, or in other ways that are unrelated to the lust that troubles him, he becomes lax and negligent. He should not expect to mortify the lust that bothers him. This is the condition that often plagues men in their pilgrimage. The Israelites, aware of their sins, sought God with diligence and earnestness, with fasting and prayer. They professed their earnestness repeatedly. They seek me daily and delight to know my ways. They ask me for the laws of justice. They take delight in approaching God. But God rejects it all. Their fasting is a remedy that will not heal them. The reason given in verses 5 to 7 is that they were selective in this duty. They attended diligently to that one, but they were negligent and careless in their other duties. Let us say someone contracts a running sore through indulgence and bad diet. If the underlying general condition of his body is diseased, then any effort he makes to cure his sore will be in vain. It will not matter how diligently and skillfully he treats the sore itself. It is no different if he tries to stop the bloody issue of sin and filth in his soul. He must be equally careful of his overall spiritual condition. That is because, and then he gives a reason. Number one, this kind of selective mortification is the result of a corrupt motive. Okay. So he's getting at the heart of why this is. It can never have good results. The correct and acceptable principles of mortification will be emphasized from here on. It is hating sin as sin, not just as a painful or disturbing habit, and comprehending the love of Christ as revealed on the cross. That lie at the bottom of all true spiritual mortification. It is obvious that the selective mortification I speak of is spawned by self love. You resolve with all diligence and earnestness to mortify a particular lust or sin. What is the reason? It bothers you. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I think this is really important. In fact, I was just last night speaking with some brothers in Christ at my church, Edgewood in Danville, and we were talking about this in the reality of dealing with addictions, right? Um, we didn't talk about this part though. This is interesting. I wish I would have read this part before last night because I would have brought this up. This is precisely what I see happening so often with people who struggle with addiction. The reality is they don't like it. they don't like it. I mean, we can make all kinds of arguments. Well, actually, they do like it because that's what. But a lot of the guys that I've met and women that I've met that struggle with uh, addictions of any type, whether they're chemical or not, they when they want to get it, it's because they don't like it. They don't want this in their life. It bothers them, right? But if all they want to do is take that one thing out, this is what John Owen is dealing with, right? So let's continue reading. You resolve with all diligence and earnestness to mortify a particular lust or sin. What is the reason? It bothers you. It has robbed you of your peace. It fills your heart with sorrow, trouble, and fear. You have no rest because of it. Keep in your mind a specific sin in your life. Friend, I suspect you have neglected prayer or reading. You have been conceited and loose in your conversation or involved in things different than the lust that bothers you. These are no less sinful and no less evil than the one causing you pain. Jesus Christ bled for those too. Why not set yourself against them as well? Oh, do you see what he's saying here? Why are you, if the reality is you're only battling the sins that bother you, trouble you, bring sorrow, they bring fear, the ones that rob you of your peace, if you're only battling those, you're actually exposing what he called self-love. Why not set yourself against all these other ones? If there's other things in your life that you know are sin, even if they're not causing you these issues, why are you not fighting against them as well? He goes on with his thought. If you hate sin as sin, and every evil way that grieves and disturbs your soul, then you should be just as watchful against everything that grieves and disturbs the Spirit of God. I'm going to grab my highlighter here. That needs highlighted. If you hate sin as sin and every evil way that grieves and disturbs your soul, then you should be just as watchful against everything that grieves and disturbs the Spirit of God. It is obvious that you struggle against sin merely because of the trouble it causes you. If your conscience was quiet about it, you would let it alone. If it did not bother you, you wouldn't bother it. Now, do you really think God will put up with such hypocritical endeavors? Do you not think his spirit will testify to the treachery and falsehood of your spirit? Do you think he will relieve you of what bothers you so you will be free to pursue something else that grieves him just as much? No, says God. If he could be rid of this lust, I would never hear from him again. Let him wrestle with it, or he will be lost. I'm going to highlight that as well. No, says God. If he could be rid of this lust, I would never hear from him again. Let him wrestle with it, or he will be lost. That, my friends, that is a powerful, powerful, powerful paragraph right there. No one should think to do his own work if he will not do God's work. God's work consists in universal obedience. To be freed of the present problem is our own work. That is why the apostle writes, cleanse yourselves from all pollution of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. If we would do anything, we must do all things. So then what is acceptable to God is not only an intense opposition to this or that specific lust, but a universally humble frame of heart. We are to be watchful over every evil and perform every duty. We will do anything. We must do all things. So then what is acceptable to God is not only an intense opposition to this or that specific lust, but a universally humble frame of heart. We are to be watchful over every evil and perform every duty. Number 2, God may be using the persistent lust that troubles you to strengthen you. A friend of mine mentioned something very similar to this last night. How do you know that God has not put up with the lust that troubles you in order to strengthen you, gain power over you, and punish you for other oversights and for your usual lukewarm walk with him? At least it has awakened you to consider your ways, to be more thorough in the work, and to change the way you walk with him. Wow, this is This has been an interesting chapter. I think this is going to make it into the top 10 of my the quotes that I'm going to pull from this book. That one right there was spectacular. Well, I hope that if you've been listening to this, you've been seeking to apply these things, and maybe this may be the exact thing that you're dealing with. Maybe as you heard this, you realized this is the core problem. Maybe God has not been giving you victory over certain sins because he knows you, and he knows that if he allowed you to be free of this, you would be fine and on your way. Let him wrestle with it, or he will be lost. Maybe even as I'm saying these things, the Spirit of God is working upon you to bring to light things that you have not worried about that are just as evil and just as sinful. Well, I pray that you would tackle those things today. And maybe in your tackling of those things today, God will begin to give you victory over all things. Pray that. Pray that today. I pray it for you. If you ever need anyone to pray with you, please feel free to reach out to me, contact me. I'd be more than happy to pray with you as you battle and wrestle with sin in your life in an attempt to mortify it. Well, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope, again, as always, I hope this has been beneficial to you. And I do, again, just pray that you are putting these things into practice, not just taking them in intellectually to think about, but to truly begin to apply them to your lives. It is all of our duties to be wrestling with sin and defeating sin and killing sin. May you be killing sin, or it will be killing you.